Welcome to the Redemptive Economics Podcast, where we are empowering Christian entrepreneurs to make a redemptive economic impact here in Pittsburgh and beyond. Let's get to work! Hey guys, welcome to the show. I am your host, Mike Hatch, and I am so glad to have you along as we are helping Christian business owners make a redemptive economic impact by building profitable businesses of eternal significance. Man, we've got a great interview for you today, but just a quick reminder, remember, you can check out my new digital course, The Redemptive Enterprise, 15 Biblical Principles for Building a Profitable Business of Eternal Significance. Yes, your business can be a powerful redemptive instrument for God's kingdom. And in this course, you'll discover a robust theology around your vocational calling and professional influence for God's purposes as we unlock these 15 powerful biblical principles. Here is what one business owner had to say about the course. This course has helped tie several financial and economic ideas together with Christ's teaching in the Bible. I've been taught many of the Bible's lessons and how they apply to my life, but the subject of money or economic success was rarely part of it. This course has given me a ton of biblical context of how God views our contributions and wants us to make use of His resources. Smart, insightful, and valuable content. I highly recommend it. The entire course, all 12 sessions, are only $25, and you can access it through the link in the show notes. All right, hey, if you have any questions, please reach out to me at mhatch@redemptiveeconomics.com. I would love to hear from you. Or if you're local to Pittsburgh, it would be great to sit down with you, buy you coffee, and hear more about your journey in business. Lastly, if you are a business owner, our Truth at Work confidential peer advisory groups might be a great fit for you. Myself and my fellow chapter president, Dave Hartman, facilitate groups all over the Pittsburgh region, and they are an incredible life and business-changing experience. We currently have openings and are accepting new members. All right, gang, let's go ahead and jump into this week's interview. So today, I'm excited, talking to an old friend now. Old friend, I would say. Well, old friend as in, like, we've known about each other, or at least known each other for, I don't know, gosh, maybe over 10 years now. Wow, that's actually, we just were out of touch for a while. But so today we're talking to Alex Giannetti. And let me make sure, Alex, I think I always pronounce your last name wrong. Is it Giannetti or Giannetti?
Giannetti.
Giannetti.
If you want to get, specific, if you're in Italy, they would say Giannetti. So whatever. You just, hey, both of them work. It's all good. I don't get all worked up over it.
Okay, so Alex Giannetti, who is the president of Christian Business Partners Incorporated and a realtor in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He holds a bachelor's in business and communications from Liberty University. We all love Liberty here. His passion is coaching others in business networking, personal finance, and biblical discipleship. Alex Giannetti, welcome to the podcast.
There you go. Definitely the most enthusiastic welcome entrance I've ever had. Thanks, Mike. It's awesome to be here. It's an honor.
Yeah, definitely. Honor. It is an honor. It's my honor too, man. So I'm excited to talk with you about some of the things you're doing here in Pittsburgh and around the country, but then also really excited to dive in and talk a little bit about your book, Great People Know Great People, Create a Powerful Business Referral Network of Great People. It is, I've read it, I've endorsed it, and I love it, and would definitely recommend to anybody who's interested in trying to up their networking game. And you, Alex, come from a very unique perspective, too, with regards to this, which I'm always surprised at because you're so good one-on-one, but naturally you are an introvert. And we've talked about this. And so your book, and you state that right off the bat at the beginning of the book, networking was not something that you came naturally to you, which I think brings a ton of value in what you share in the book. But as I'm teasing that, before we get there, first, Alex, let's go through and hear a little bit about your faith background. I want to hear your story and how God brought you to where you are here today.
Yeah. Man, this is it's interesting for sure. And I do love sharing this story. It's I just love the story. I love the way that God has been so incredibly patient, and I'm very grateful for God and for His patience with me. So I made the crack about Italy earlier, and my family, if you trace back the name Giannetti, you're going to go back to, Sicily somewhere. And my father would tell you probably a prison in Sicily. Really? That's the joke. That's the joke he likes to make, that may not land well with some of your listeners. But my parents are from Argentina. And so when you are, from a South American country, most likely you're going to be what's considered a Roman Catholic. And so, I grew up in a household where I was always told that I was Catholic. But there was never any evidence of that. We never went to church. We never prayed. There was just nothing. If being Catholic were illegal, we would have just got right through. There would have been no clues to follow, to arrest my family, right? Wow. So as I aged, and I remember as a young boy, I heard this testimony the other day. You and I were at the prayer breakfast, and when the speaker told the story of being a young man and laying in bed and wondering what was going to happen to you when you die and laying awake, that was me. I was holding back tears as he shared that part of his testimony, because that was me. I remember just being terrified, lying in bed, thinking it's pitch black. I'm on the bottom bunk. My brother's on the top bunk, and I'm like, I don't even see his bunk. Is this what death is like? You're just sitting here in the dark, alone. Like, wow. It freaked me out, right? And so, fast forward. I had these little trinkets, I'll call them. I had a little necklace that, with a little Jesus medallion on it, and had my birth date engraved in the back. And when I got older, as a teenager, I'd wear it. It was kind of cool, but it had no meaning to me other than it was this kind of cool necklace that I had. But never set foot in church. I was on the soccer field on Sundays. I wasn't, doing anything. In high school, I think I was probably like most worldly teenagers, doing things I shouldn't be doing. But as a result, my girlfriend got pregnant, and I was a father at 18.
Wow.
And my son was born 3 weeks after graduation. So I graduated from high school June 13th. My son was born on July 7th in 1986. And so I, did the right thing in terms of, wanting to, I didn't run off to school. I had an opportunity to play college soccer. I had an opportunity to go to different schools, and I stayed local and just said, hey, I've got to, take care of this and do the right thing. And so I did. But I'll just fast forward. I found myself 20 years old. I was married with 2 kids. And by 22, I was divorced with 2 kids.
Wow.
So all that happened really quick. And really quick, my life was pretty much kind of in the toilet. I was working 3 jobs. I had to drop out of school. I was going to school for a while, but once the second one was on the way, then I dropped out because I needed to get 3 jobs just to try to keep things afloat. And so I remember sitting at home one day. At this point, my ex, and I don't think we were officially divorced yet. I think we had broken up, and she had taken the kids, and it was just, we were trying to navigate that. But there was zero hope in my mind of any kind of resolution there. And she had taken the kids to Northern California, which from a Pittsburgh perspective would be the distance of like Jacksonville, Florida, right? But you're still in the state. That's how wild that is. So, and so I was looking through a Penny Saver magazine would come to the house, on a weekly basis on Wednesdays or something. And I was always,
you're showing your age here.
I've already given it up. I gave you my graduation date. Someone could do math and figure out. But, and I would look for rims for my truck or something, because I'm a young kid. And but I saw this ad in there, and the ad was from the local Catholic church, and they were promoting some event at the church. And I wish I would give anything to have a copy of that ad today. So I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was something along the lines of, are you mad at God? Have you fallen away from the church? Do you have questions?
Wow.
And from a Catholic church, I think that's wild, because I don't think that's the vibe, and especially back then, right?
Right. Yep.
Where you're talking, 40 years ago, or close to 40 years ago, 35 years ago, whenever that was. And so I decide I'm going to go. And this is where the cool stuff happens and where God does his work. So I'm in the parking lot on whatever it was, Wednesday night, Thursday night. It's dark. There's no one around. There's several cars in the parking lot. But whatever time it started, at the church, I went.
Okay.
Right? And let's just say it started at 7, I'm guessing, right? Mm-hmm. Probably. And so I would have been rolling up at the parking lot at 6:59 or something, right? And so that's why I didn't see anyone. I didn't get there early necessarily. And it was literally around the corner from my house. And so I had my car door open. I had my left foot on the asphalt of the parking lot, but I had both hands like firmly on the steering wheel. And I was trying to decide, am I going to get out of my car and go in, or am I going to stay right where I am? And I have no idea how long I was sitting there. And I wish I could tell you what was going through my mind, but I was nervous to go in, right? Of course. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, this hand comes from my left side through the open door and just reaches in, palm up, without saying a word. And I remember I was startled, and I look up, and there's this woman just with her hand extended. And without saying a word, I took her hand and got out of the car.
Sorry, can you describe the woman? Was this older woman, younger woman?
Older than me. Everyone was older than me. Okay. I would say, probably 40s, 50s.
Okay.
Blonde.
Wow.
That was it.
A lot of angels are blonde, I think.
So, and here's the deal. I think, and not to say that it couldn't be, I'm not going to take anything away from God. I did see her again one time when I tried to go to the church.
Okay.
So I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. So otherwise, if I never saw her again, I would have told you, oh my goodness, I probably did have an angel come help me a little bit. Like, hey, get your butt out of the car and let's go.
Yeah.
So I follow her in. We're chatting a little bit. Can't tell you about what. I walk into this church, and man, I loved it. I loved how beautiful it was. I loved that was very cool to me. But, you're not in the sanctuary. You quickly turn, and we go down this hallway, and we go into this conference room, and there's this giant oval conference room table with a bunch of old people. And so old people that probably look a lot like you and I, Mike, right? Like when you're 22, right. When you're 22 and you're looking at, 40s, 50s, 60s, you're like, holy cow, what am I doing here, And so I was sitting at this conference room table, and immediately to my right at the end was this priest. And the priest was probably the second youngest guy in the room. So he might have been about 40, in his late 30s. And I remember what really got me was he had the coolest hair. He looked exactly like Kenny G, if you remember who Kenny G, the saxophone player dude. Yeah, exactly. Sure. So I had to tell myself, stop staring at him, stop staring. But I couldn't stop staring at him. And he just had this really calm demeanor. And again, God is so good. He basically opened up and he said, hey, look, I just want to hear from you and why you're here tonight. What brought you here tonight? There wasn't a big, long intro. It was that simple. Mm-hmm. And praise God, he turned to his right and not his left. So he turns to his right. And again, there's people around this table. There's probably 8 of us, maybe. And right off the rip, first gentleman says, he goes, I was married for whatever years, 20 years. I had so many kids. my wife dies of cancer, he says. So then he says, it took me, it was a significant amount of time, 8 years, to kind of get my life back and kind of get my kids grown. He goes, then I meet this woman and we get married and she just died of cancer.
Wow.
And he said, and I'm pissed off at God. And he said it just like that. And I remember thinking, are you allowed to say that? Are you allowed to say that to a priest? Are you allowed to say that in the church? So, I have no church background whatsoever. My eyes are this big, and my heart is broken for this man, right? Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, oh my gosh. So I immediately turned to the priest to see what he says. And he did a really good job of not addressing anything, right? It was more like, I'm with you. I'm mourning with you. I'm sorry with you. It was very heartfelt, but the room just kind of settled. And then the next person went and kind of talked about why they were there. And I remember that was really weird because I was thinking he was going to have some profound answer of why, God allows people to die of cancer. Like I'm coming from zero background, so I have no idea what I'm walking into.
Seneca Hills Bible Camp and Retreat Center is a hidden gem located just north of Pittsburgh in Venango County. Personally, when I attended their men's weekend, I was blown away by the beauty of the surroundings, the quality of the facilities, and the superiority of the cuisine. This is not your typical camp food, folks. Seneca Hills hosts year-round retreats and conferences, but their true passion is summer camp, where campers, both kids and adults, escape the everyday tyranny of screens and distractions and immerse themselves in 250 acres of God's gorgeous creation. Go to SenecaHills.org or call my good buddy, Executive Director Lyndon Fowler, to learn more about how Seneca Hills Bible Camp and Retreat Center can help you, your kids, or your business create unforgettable memories, meaningful friendships, and a deeper understanding of God's love. Jeff Doherty with Allstate Insurance has the distinction of being the very first sponsor of the Redemptive Economics podcast, and I couldn't be happier to promote his services. I've known Jeff for many years now, both as his pastor and friend, and man, I can say with confidence that he is a man of strong faith who aligns well with the Redemptive Economics values. So reach out to Jeff. He can offer you options for a wide variety of coverage and services. He's committed to helping Pittsburgh residents assess their immediate and long-term needs and choose options that will help you achieve your goals. When you want to explore options for protecting your home, personal property, or financial future, Jeff Doherty is your guy. You'll find Jeff's contact information in the show notes. Hey, go grab a cup of coffee with him, get to know him, even if it's just to review your current coverage in case you need to make adjustments. And I promise you're going to love Jeff every bit as much as I do.
So then there's another woman who's sitting across from me, and she had a young child that died, a son or daughter, 4 or 5 years old, etc. And she was upset. How could God allow an innocent child to die? This child hasn't done anything. They haven't even lived a life. Why would God allow this to happen? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, yeah, oh my gosh, why would God allow it to happen? That's terrible. I've got kids at home. And all of a sudden now I'm like, holy cow, what? This is, I never even thought about them possibly dying. Here's a real life person in front of me whose child has died. So, again, I'm looking at all this, and then finally we get to the end corner of the room here, and this woman is there, and she's, she's probably in her 50s, 60s. And she was really upset. She said, I have been in an abusive marriage for close to 30 years, she said. Wow. And she said, I have been physically abused. I have been mentally abused. I've been sexually abused. I've been emotionally abused. And she said, the entire time the church has told me that I cannot divorce my husband, that I have to stay with him. And she said, and I've done everything the church has told me to do. Finally, I realized for my own safety, I needed to leave. And so I did. And I got the courage and the power to divorce him. And now I'm excommunicated from the church, and the church won't have me.
Whoa.
And she goes, make that make sense. And so I'm like, whoa. right? And I had no idea about, this with the excommunication in the Catholic Church at the time. I've learned afterwards, et cetera. But I thought, this is crazy. So, and then in between, people had things, but those are the only three I remember. They were very significant. They had an impact on me. And then as it gets around and it gets to me, it's my turn. And I'm sure everyone in the room is like, what's this kid doing here? Like, have you even lived? Like, what are you doing here? And I remember I sat there and I said something that just was so profound to me at the time, that what had hit me hard. And I remember I just said, my life is completely screwed up right now. But it's all my fault and all my doing. And then that was it. I just had nothing else to say, because I wasn't going in there angry at God. I wasn't going in there with anything. I just thought, I don't know who God is if there is a God, I need to know, because my life completely sucks. And if this is what life is, life sucks. This is garbage. And so I had no idea what I was walking into, but what I quickly realized was, these guys have real problems, and none of it was self-inflicted. Everything in my life that was screwed up was self-inflicted. And so I think that was really important for me, really powerful for me to realize that I was reaping what I had sown. And so I left that meeting that night, and I remember trying to go to that church for a while, but man, I couldn't do it. It was just too different for me. And I just kind of went on my business. The seed had been planted in terms of, I knew, or I felt like there was, something. I do feel like, I did feel at the time like, I think there might be a God, where I never really had, I stopped contemplating that for a long time, and it wasn't actively seeking in any way. I think I poured my efforts into just being the best person I could be, which, from a worldly perspective, I worked hard trying to be as good of a dad as I could be from a distance, and really just focused on that. And then I met my wife. I was in the restaurant business, and I was a general manager of a restaurant, and she was a training manager. And so I like to tell this story. She hates it when I tell it, so she's not here right now. But, Moses...
Do tell.
There you go. Moses, God got to Moses through a burning bush, right? And, Jacob, to the ladder, and with the ladder, Paul with the bright light. For me, it was a pair of tight pants walking through my dining room. And, the Lord knows how to get our attention. And,
yes, sir.
And so, but anyway, I got to know Stacy, and turns out that the restaurant that kind of where she kind of grew from and had been trained in, one of my good buddies was there. And so it turned out pretty quickly that we were all hanging out together, a big group of friends. And man, I chased her for a while, and finally she gave in, and we started dating. But the cool thing was, she just kind of said, "Hey, look, I'm Christian. We're going to church on Sunday morning, so we can go out Saturday night, and you can come back." She lived at home with her parents, in her fairly late 20s at the time, 26, 25. And said, "You could spend the night, you're sleeping in the loft, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, we're going to the traditional Lutheran service with Mom and Dad." And I said, "I'm in." And I remember going, and I think it's kind of cool, because there's a big difference between Lutheran and Catholic, but there's a lot of some of that old, just like the liturgy and those kinds of things, and the robes, so it was really cool for me, and it just spoke to me, and it was awesome. And I was like, this is awesome. This is where I need to be. So I didn't have like a thunder and lightning moment. I didn't have an aha. It was more like, okay, this is right. And I went to like a new member class. I heard the gospel for the first time. All of a sudden it all made sense. I needed it to make sense. It was awesome. And then that was it. So God definitely used Stacy to help usher me across the finish line. Wow. And so
what's so amazing about this, though, Alex, is, man, was the Holy Spirit at work so clearly right out of the gate. And I think we underestimate sometimes in our journeys just how God really pursues us, you know? So like, what the heck was that lady thinking, just reaching out her hand, not saying anything? I mean, it's kind of a dangerous thing to do. If you think about it today, even, like, you don't walk up to a stranger like that. Like, I don't know. But the fact that she did that, and then you went in, and what you said, what you heard obviously was huge, but then what you said, my life is a mess and it's all my fault.
Yeah.
Wow. That's the work of the Holy Spirit in you, bringing that to light. You know, not many people come to that place. And then of course you're meeting Stacy and growing in your faith through that. Like, it just, man, that it's just so encouraging to hear that just God's pursuit of us in your story, you know?
Right. Yeah. And it's wild, you know, because I could think back and think, my goodness, why? Like, why me? Like, it makes no sense. Today there's no way that happens, right? There's no way that someone reaches into someone's car and does that. And, you know, the only thing I could think of is she must have been, you know, part of the church in some way.
Yeah.
And so she just said, hey, there's this kid who looks like he's thinking about coming in, and I'm gonna help him come in, which was amazing, you know?
Yeah.
Because I don't know that I would have come in. I know me, and, you know, as an introvert, whatever, the last thing I want to do is go walk into a room full of people I don't know. I don't want to do that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Man, which says all the more about the book you wrote and your expertise and experience now and what you love to teach people about. That's so crazy. Okay, so you've been a realtor for a while, and somehow you moved from the sounds like the restaurant business into the real estate business. Is that how that worked? Or
oh man, yeah. So, you know, you know about my divorce. I've got 2 kids now. They're in Southern California, all the way in Northern California. I'm sorry, I'm in Southern California. And Stacy and I get married, and we're married a minute and a half, and you know, she kind of says to me, you need to get custody of your boys. And I'm thinking, are you sure you want that? Like, you know, and she goes, I think you should get custody of the boys. Wow. So I called my ex. They were 13 and 11. And I said, this is going to sound crazy, but, you know, the boys are at an age where I think they need their father. And would you let me have them? Like, can I just come get them? And she said, yes. In what world does that happen?
Wow.
Right?
It does not. Wow.
And so, man, we didn't hesitate. Stacy and I drove up, rented a U-Haul, last day of school. We loaded up, you know, their bedrooms and their clothes, and we drove down, and they came and lived with us, and that was in 99. And so I had a 13-year-old who was going on 20. You know, he's already 6 feet tall and man of the house. And, you know, then I had a 11-year-old who was probably going on like 6, you know. And so it was interesting. Stacey and I were just having this conversation the other day with our youngest, who's now getting married, who asked a really, really cool adult question and said, what has been the most challenging point in your marriage? And it was just he and his fiance, and they were just kind of, I'm like, wow, okay, we're going to go there. Let's go.
Right.
And, you know, Stacy and I have an amazing marriage, and we don't, and we never have fought about anything. But those were the times that we did fight. The only times we fought were with those, right? Because you're all of a sudden you're instant parents of teenagers that you did not raise, and you know, rules are different, this, that, and the other. And by this point, you know, we're part of a church plant. We're very involved in ministry. We're doing things. And so that was definitely a challenge. And at that time, and then we start having our 2 boys. And so now I've got these 2 young boys at home. I've got the older boys, and God has literally given me a do-over. He literally gave me 2 more sons and was like, hey, don't screw this one up. You know, my oldest son, his name is Anthony. Anthony has the same personality as Christian. Stacy and I, our oldest son. My second oldest son, his name is Andre. He is basically the same personality as Samuel. And so when I say God gave me a do-over, it's crazy. They are almost exactly the same gap apart in age. They're very similar in just how they are. It's wild. And so I was in the restaurant business for a long time, and then I went to manufacturing. So I ran a women's cosmetics facility. I know more about women's cosmetics than any man should. And so when I talk to women about this, I usually will start labeling off all of the companies that I make product for, and then that's when they know I'm not messing around because I know all these things. And it was in that I was driving to downtown Los Angeles, and I would leave the house at 5 a.m. so I could get there by 6. And if I didn't leave by 2:45, I was screwed because I'd be a 2-hour drive in traffic on the way home. If I left by that time, then I could get home in maybe an hour and a half. And so I just hated that. And sometimes I would leave late, I'd get home late, and I'm with my boys for a few minutes and they go to bed, right? And I hated that. So I was looking for anything and everything to try to, like, how do I need to make more money, right? Like, I just need to make money so I can be home. Stacy didn't work. She was at home and she was homeschooling the younger two, years later. And just being a mom, which is what we wanted. We wanted to raise our own kids. We knew that would come with sacrifice financially. And so we said, okay, I just started grabbing onto anything and everything I could possibly do. So I was doing multi-level marketing stuff. I was like anything that I could do to kind of grab things. And then through the multi-level marketing, I heard of this real estate investment group where you could go, you show up, for example, at we'll just say the Regional Learning Alliance, right? You show up and there's 3 developers that are there, right? One of them is from Virginia Beach. One of them's from Jacksonville, Florida. One of them's from Myrtle Beach, North Carolina. And they're there and they kind of pitch their housing plan that they're building. They're all going to be good rentals, 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes. They've got a lender there that tells you what the rate is and what your mortgage is going to be. Then they have the property manager who shows up and says, hey, the demand in this area is high and you can get, $900 a month for these properties. This is 2004, right? And then sure enough, you have a guy who shows up and he's just got all the data, So, last year, 12,000 trucks from U-Haul drove into Myrtle Beach, but only 3,000 left. Motorola is building a plant. There's this company called Amazon that's building a warehouse. They're putting in Lowe's and Home Depots, and then you're kind of like, oh, that's all good signs. That's showing growth. That's showing economy. So like they basically did all the work, and then they kind of hand you this platter and say, would you like one? And then you say, yes, sir, I'll take one. So we went, and in 2004, I bought 5 rental properties, and we took equity out of our house. Took like $100,000 out of our house, and then we went and I bought Myrtle Beach, Jacksonville, Florida, Fayetteville, North Carolina, and Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And then right before the end of the year, we bought one in Arizona. And then in 2005, we turned around and did the same thing and bought 5 more, only this time we did it like all in California. We would buy a house, rent it out, and then a few months later buy another house, rent that out, and just kind of go down the line.
The famous Burr method, maybe.
It was it seemed really smart at the time.
Yeah, I know. As you say the years, right? Everybody who knows anything about 2007/8, 9-ish.
Yeah.
They're already anticipating where this is going.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Hey, guys, are you ready to start buying Bitcoin, but maybe you're hesitant because of the unique challenges in the areas of exchanges and custody and tax planning? That is where my good friend and brother in Christ, Josh Bryant, and his company, Freedom Trust, comes in. Freedom Trust brings years of experience to address these issues in collaboration with trusted industry custodians and service providers. Freedom Trust is a registered investment advisor, and Josh specializes as an advisor for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. He works with individuals, businesses, and as a partner to other registered investment advisors who need expertise in the custody of Bitcoin and digital assets. Josh can guide you through the complexities of cryptocurrency investments, providing personalized strategies to manage and protect your assets effectively. Find out more and contact my good buddy Josh Bryant today at freedomtrust.com. And let's start embracing Bitcoin, the only monetary protocol that abides by God's mandate for just weights and measures. TBD Bookkeeping is who I use for my bookkeeping needs, and I'm thrilled to recommend them to you. As business owners with 3 kids themselves, Ryan and Danielle Hatch understand the value of time and the importance of work-life balance. TBD Bookkeeping can take over the day-to-day bookkeeping of your business so you can focus more on growth, operations, and customer relationships. I can speak from experience. If you're a business owner, you need a bookkeeper, and TBD Bookkeeping is simply the best in the business. Find their contact information in the show notes, and when you mention Redemptive Economics, you'll receive 10% off your first 3 months. Call TBD Bookkeeping today and learn more about the benefits I've experienced. More time, peace of mind, and the ability to plan for the future.
So it's
so
like
you leveraged yourself up pretty good.
Pretty bad, actually.
Pretty bad, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
I mean, I had negative amortization loans. It was bad. What I did was not smart, but I was so excited. I thought I was a genius, right? I had 10 rental properties paying 11 mortgages, and we were living in the dream home. So we had this gated community, swimming pool. Stacy's homeschooling the boys. And it was at that time when I said, I kind of am a real estate genius if I think about it, I should just quit my job and get into real estate full time. And so that's what I did. And I got into real estate. I was doing mortgages, and I was doing it for a minute. I mean, that was June of 2006 that I did that. And we had been owning these rental properties now for about a year and a half. And then, Roadrunner just drops the anvil on Wile E. Coyote's egg basket. All of my income, all of my assets, all of our retirement, like everything was in real estate, and just wham. And I know everyone likes to think 2008, but it hit the coast. It hit what they call the sand states first. So California, Florida, Nevada, Arizona, Texas got pummeled immediately. And then the ripple effect from that kind of ran through the country. But man, we got hit hard, and for a moment we thought we were going to lose everything. And again, it got really bad. Stacy and I never ever fought about money. But we didn't talk about money. So I've got my head in the sand over here. She's got her head in the sand over there. We're not talking about it. We're trying to live on credit cards because there's just no money coming in. No one's getting a mortgage. Right? And she's not working. So we both fight to go back to work and try to find a real job. She gets hired at this amazing company, and then I end up taking over homeschooling the boys. And, part of this is in my book, where now I'm forced to go out really and earn. And in doing so, I had to kind of do things that I would not have done. I would have just quit. But I had to get out of my comfort zone a little bit. Bottom line is I'll fast forward the story because we'll be here all day. We found Dave Ramsey through our church. We jumped in. Man, we didn't pound the lemonade. We beer bonged the lemonade. Like we were all over it, and we did everything that he said to do times 100, and it worked. And it didn't come without pain. We lost our personal residence to foreclosure. We lost 2 of our rental properties to foreclosure. We did a short sale on 2 others, and the rest we were able to sell. We had $52,000 $775.25 in credit card debt. I'll never not remember that number.
Wow.
And we paid that off. This was in '08 is when we started this. December of 2007 is when we wrote our first budget. By March of 2009, that $52,000 was gone, and then all we had was real estate debt. And we just vowed that we'll never borrow money again. We're only going to spend cash, all the stuff that Dave Ramsey talks about. Our kids were young, so they weren't impacted. They thought it was cool when we'd have pancakes for dinner, and stuff like that, not realizing that we needed to, But, fast forward years later, God is good. We kept that up all throughout. My wife turned out to be a rock star at work, and something that she took where she looked at me and said, I'll do this for a year, and then we need to figure this out. You know this, Mike, but she just retired 2 weeks ago after 18 years and was able to retire early at 54. So God has been so good to us. We've been faithful. And at that time, man, I don't know that we've been closer to the Lord in terms of our walk and our ministry involvement at church. Just we were all in for the Lord, but from a financial standpoint, it was like I was telling God, I got this. I don't need your help with the money part. And so he had to pry it out of my hands, and then I changed my mind on how to do that. But so, that I stayed in real estate the whole time because I was able to, At first it was, I need to focus on homeschooling my kids and my phone's not ringing anyway. So I need to focus on their education. And then as business started coming back and, we got into our routine, it was good.
So you just took a new approach to real estate investing, I guess, than
previously,
I guess? Or?
We stopped. We have purchased one more property recently, but our goal is we're not buying anything unless we could pay cash from this point forward. I'm not borrowing ever again. And so, but we ended up keeping the 4 original properties that we bought: North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Florida. We kept those.
Oh, wow.
Then Stacy's job moved us from Southern California to Pittsburgh in 2014. And shortly after that, those properties just became really expensive. I mean, if you think insurance, I can't imagine what the insurance on those beach, properties, beach community properties would be today.
Right.
But it even, 6-7 years ago, it got to the point where it was just too high and they were sucking any profits off of the other 2. So we sold 2 of those properties and we ended up paying off Fayetteville, North Carolina, which we own free and clear. Murfreesboro, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville, we own free and clear. And then, we were just going at it, all through life, and the boys growing up, getting to, accepted to college and those kinds of things. We cash flowed their college. We didn't want them to have any student loan debt. We paid off our mortgage in, I think it was 2021. We paid off our house. And so we've been debt free.
That's amazing. At what point did you become a realtor? Was that still in California before you moved to Pittsburgh?
Just before we moved to Pittsburgh.
Okay.
I was going to people's houses as a guy who did mortgage loans, and let's say I go to your house, Mike, and you're like, "Hey, Alex, I want to get a refinance." And it's like, "Okay, great. What are we doing? What's the plan?" "I want to buy this boat, man. I'm so excited." "Okay, well, let's take a look at it." Whoever the mortgage person is you're working with, they have to know everything about you, right? They're going to know your paycheck stubs, your tax returns, your bank statements, your credit score. And just because we do this wrong, someone could have an 800 FICO score and be hanging on by a thread. And the banks will just give you whatever you want. And it shouldn't be that way. And so I've been in situations where because we don't use credit cards, I've gone to rent a car, and unless you're flying, the rental companies don't want to rent a car to you if you don't have a credit card. So with my debit card, they're like, "I'm sorry, sir, I can't rent that SUV. You have to have this Toyota Corolla." I'm like, "Why? What's the difference?" They said, "Well, you have to have a credit card." "Why?" "I don't know. Those are rules." And it's like, and I don't want to be a jerk, but I wanted to open up my phone and go, I could buy the damn car. Like, just, can you just rent it to me? Right. And like, where's the common sense in our financial system? So,
Alex.
I know who I'm talking to. But it's one of those things that was really kind of frustrating, right?
Yeah.
In this process of going through things. But so I'm sitting across, a couple and want to buy a boat. And at that point I kind of go, hey, look, here's the deal. I can see all your stuff. And if you want to buy a boat, I think you should be able to buy a boat. But I don't think I'm the one to help you. And then they would go, what are you talking about? And I said, well, look, I put myself in a really bad financial position a few years ago, making decisions that now I realize were really poor decisions. And I don't want to help you make what I think is a poor financial decision that could hurt your family.
Wow.
And I said, and please, I hope you don't take that the wrong way. You have every right to be angry with me if you want. But I said, let me give you, some positive notes here. If you walk down to Wells Fargo tomorrow, they'll give you a loan. You're well qualified. But I love you. I don't want to walk into the grocery store next, in 6 months and see you and have you tell me that, you got laid off, something happened in your job, and all of a sudden now everything's fallen apart because you've leveraged yourself too much, and that I helped you do that. I'm not doing it. So then I would say, look, I don't think you need a loan. I think you need a budget, and I'd love to help you with that. So I would talk people out of getting, of pulling equity out of their homes and doing things that were harmful.
And that's where you would also, because you were doing the Dave Ramsey stuff. You were Dave Ramsey financial coach as well.
I was coaching,
right?
at the time. And so I would invite them to come to FPU, told them how my life has been changed as a result. And so I would just come home and I'd look at Stacy and I'd go, well, I talked myself out of another loan tonight, and I realized that just wasn't going to pay the bills, but I did want to sleep at night, I wasn't going to trade sleep for money. And so I said, I love the real estate game. I'm on the wrong team. And so I crossed over to the dark side, I like to say, and became a realtor. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And then that's funny. We met around 2014 when you moved to Pittsburgh, and I was a pastor at a church up here in the North Hills, and you came to visit, and we're talking about, of course, the Dave Ramsey stuff. And I wish it was further in my tenure when I was there that I may have had a little bit more influential equity, I guess, to make things happen. But anyway, we unfortunately, I know you didn't stick there. You ended up at another church eventually. But you still, you've been doing the Dave Ramsey stuff for a while, helping a lot of people, I know, and of course being a realtor, but also you took over Christian Business Partners, and this was after you moved to Pittsburgh, right? You started Christian Business Partners here. Talk a little bit about that, and then you took over as president, and this is a national ministry for anybody who's wondering, for Christian businesses it's a networking ministry basically. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I was part of this in Southern California. As the boys got a little bit older, homeschooling, I needed to go out and earn, and I needed to network, which was, again, I'm an introvert. I don't like doing that. But I would take my boys with me. They would take something they could work on quietly, their math, go sit in the corner, hide over there, and don't make a peep. And I'll be over here, networking and doing my thing. And so I came across Christian Business Partners, and I thought the concept was really cool. And so sure enough, I show up, and it is, and I'm in. So I started attending my local chapter. Within 2-3 months, people who are running the chapter had to leave, and I became president of the chapter. So I'm now running this thing probably from 2010, 2011, I can't remember exactly, but somewhere along that time frame, all the way through 2013 up until we moved to Pittsburgh. So I'm running my local chapter of Christian Business Partners. It was amazing. I loved it. We moved to Pittsburgh, and although I would love to have that, I don't want to start it. That's a lot of work. I would rather someone else started it. So I'm looking online and trying to find faith-based networking groups in Pittsburgh, and I just don't find any. I'm online. I'm Googling. I'm on meetup.com. I'm looking at different places. And so, well, I guess there just aren't any. So I joined the local chamber, Pittsburgh, North Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I'm doing my networking there, and it's great, it's fine, but ultimately, it's lacking a little bit. It's just different when you're doing it in the faith-based community. So I call back to California, talk to Pastor Doug Wilson, and say, hey, listen, any chance you'll let me start a chapter in Pittsburgh? He said, Alex, absolutely, go for it. Because I trust you. Make it happen. I'll take care of all the nonprofit paperwork stuff, and we're good. So sure enough, I start one chapter selfishly, so that I can network with believers in Wexford. And God blew that up in a 2.5 year period, and we had 7 chapters all around Pittsburgh. And man, that was awesome. And then COVID did a number on us, and we started doing this kind of stuff that we're doing now, which was just very rare back then, right? You might be on Skype if you had to talk to someone outside the country, but other than that, we just weren't doing this. Yeah. So I hated that with a passion. Really wanted to be back in person. So, but during that time, Pastor Doug Wilson is the one who kind of called me and said, hey, look, I can't do this anymore. I'm out. He said, no pressure, but pray about taking over the ministry. And if you say no, I'm going to shut it down. And I went, holy cow, you can't shut it down, right? I mean, it was so powerful and so impactful. And I kept thinking about the number of people that I knew. And even now, dear, dear, dear friends of mine that I just would not have met otherwise. Yeah. The relationships that I've seen kind of flourish. And I said, no, this needs to keep going. Talked to my wife, prayed about it, and decided to take it over. So starting in 2021, I took over Christian Business Partners and have been running it since. And it's been awesome. We definitely lost some chapters in that time period, both COVID and since, with some changes that I made now that, kind of needed to be made. But we've also grown in some areas too. So we're in Arizona and Texas and Philadelphia, and nice. I guess God can work anywhere, right? Absolutely. Even Philly. Yeah.
Even Philly. That's right. Oh, that's very cool, man. Okay. And okay. So then, out of all of this, eventually, you write this book. And I remember, because you were part of my Truth at Work roundtable here in Wexford for a while. Yeah. And you had mentioned the book, that it was an idea that you had been working on, and then you kind of, I know you committed to us that you were really going to make this thing happen. And praise God, man, you did. You absolutely did. And so tell us a little bit about what your motivation was in writing the book. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the contents as well. Truth at Work executive peer advisory groups are a life and business changing experience. Trust me, I've experienced it myself. It made such an impact on me that I stepped out to become a chapter president myself. At Truth at Work, we're dedicated to helping Christian business leaders who feel isolated and overwhelmed. Our community of like-minded peers are here to help leaders like you live out your faith in the marketplace and build your business on biblical principles. Christian business leaders are transformed through these peer advisory groups that apply biblical truth for living out our faith in all areas of life. If you'd like to learn more about Truth at Work, email me, Mike Hatch, at mhatch@truthatwork.org, or you can email my counterpart, Dave Hartman, at dhartman@truthatwork.org. Sovereign.io is the Bitcoin consulting company for businesses. They provide strategic advisory, tailored education, and seamless onboarding to a Bitcoin standard. Adopting new technology alone can be daunting and filled with unnecessary pitfalls. Working with a trusted sovereign advisor can help you avoid costly mistakes and position you for success from the outset. With over a century of collective Bitcoin experience, they've overcome the challenges so you can leverage their experience. Make sure you click the link in the show notes to get 2 essential Bitcoin guides: Bitcoin Simplified, a clear, concise introduction to Bitcoin, and The Business Case for Bitcoin, the world's first in-depth ebook on Bitcoin's place in corporate finance and strategy. Bitcoin is a solution to the problem that every company on the planet faces. Understanding and adopting this sweeping technology will be the key for all business leaders in 2025.
I've been networking and forced to network because of my financial situation back in California, where I'd get up and I'd go to meetings and I didn't know what I was doing. I'm a corporate America guy who kind of went the manufacturing route. Then all of a sudden I'm forced to go kind of give this Shark Tank pitch to people every week, every Wednesday morning, and I don't know what I'm doing. And I remember just feeling so stupid, and going up to a meeting and you're yelling at yourself and calling yourself names is not a good way to motivate yourself, right? And then when you leave, you're calling yourself worse names because you screwed it up. And so I remember just how bad that was, and I remember how I had to fight through it. And then I remember I went from not knowing squat about networking to being pretty good in terms of just understanding how networking worked. And it wasn't until I moved to Pittsburgh, I tell this story, there's actually a chapter. Chapter 1 is called Unintended Consequences, because the unintended consequences of an encounter that I had was my aha moment, right? I moved to Pittsburgh. I'm a brand new guy. I don't know anyone. And immediately I regress to my very first networking interaction, right? When I first walked into the Pittsburgh North Regional Chamber of Commerce, there's 35, 40 people in this ballroom. I don't want to be there. I don't want to talk to these people, but I have to. And
so nobody came over and grabbed your hand?
No one came over and grabbed my hand.
Reached out to you? Okay.
To be honest, and this is the thing, this helped me realize I want to be as friendly as possible in these situations.
Oh, yeah.
Because everyone's in their cliques, everyone's in their groups, and no one's paying attention to anyone else. And that was me. I was alone in a room full of 35 people.
Yeah.
And I never felt more alone, because it was just like it was just pounding on me. Like, as an introvert, I wasn't going to break into anyone's conversation, and yet I felt very I don't know what the word is, but no one was talking to me. No one seemed interested to talk to me. I've got, business cards in my pocket. I'm supposed to go out and meet people and try to, my goal was, I had a goal. I said, just set up a coffee date with one person. That's your goal today. Just meet one person, ask them to get coffee with you and get to know them. I'm brand new. I don't look like anyone from Western Pennsylvania. I stand out, right? People aren't likely to walk up to you and start working with you. So you just need to start building relationships. And so that's my plan. Well, ultimately, a woman walks in the room and she just lit up the room when she came in. People are screaming, running over, giving her a hug. And I'm like, okay, I don't know who she is. I don't know what she does. She's the one, right? Then I went from knowing exactly who this person was that I was going to go up and talk to. Then I go all the way back to being a young man when you're about to ask a girl out, like now my heart is pounding. I'm nervous that she's going to reject me. And it's like, it's not even a romantic situation. There's no physical attraction here. I have a goal to have coffee with someone, and I think you're going to be nice, right? Like, people don't scream and jump up and down when I walk in the room, and I'm a pretty decent guy. So like, you must be amazing. Like, that's my thought process. Like, that is going to be the least resistant person in the room is probably her, right? Yeah. Everyone loves her for a reason. And sure enough, I went up after the meeting, heart pounding and all, and just kind of said, hey, I'm brand new to Pittsburgh. I'd love to, hear more about you and your business and see if there's any way I could help. Would you be interested in having coffee? And she goes, absolutely. Hands me a card. A couple days later, we went and had coffee. So next meeting I go to, I'm walking up to the meeting. She's already there. She's with a group of 3 guys, and when she sees me, she starts waving her arms and then going like this and waving me in. And that was my aha moment. That was my unintended consequence. Wow. Like, we got together, and all we talked about for like an hour and a half was family. We never got off family. We were talking about her kids and my kids and what it was like to live in California, moving to Pittsburgh. My kids were in Boy Scouts. Her kids were in Boy Scouts. Sports, church, found out she was a believer. Like, all these things we were talking about. We were not talking about business at all. As I'm walking up to her, I thought, this is weird, because I'm looking over my shoulder thinking she must be waving at someone else. And I realized she's talking to me. She's waving. She's excited to see me, and she's calling me over. Wow. So as I'm walking over there, I realize she's going to introduce me to these guys. That's awesome. I have an in. Right? Like, I get instant street cred because of her. I haven't done anything. And sure enough, she introduces me. She says, "Hey, have you guys met Alex? He just moved here from California. He's a great guy." And I went, "I'm a great guy. Like you spent an hour and a half with me, I guess, like maybe." But to them, they were going off of the fact that they trusted her. And so, Mike, I've told you this 100 times, if you introduce me to someone, I'm excited to meet them because of you, right? And so that impact that we have when we make that introduction, when we give that referral to people, whatever, is powerful, and it's based on who we are, way more than the person that we're referring, although that is important too. But I had instant cred there, and that was in April of 2014. And out of that interaction, one of the gentlemen that she introduced me to, my first closed sale in late December came from one of those guys,
cool.
who kind of referred me to a neighbor of his. And but it was a year of just networking, going and having one coffee at a time. My goal was to have 50 one-to-one meetings where I would just go meet with people, knowing that I'm new, no one's going to trust me, no one's going to buy a house from the new guy who doesn't even know anything about Pittsburgh. And so I just said, well, I'm going to meet as many people as I can. I'm going to get to know as many people as I can. And if I like you, then I'm going to do everything I can to help you and connect you by connecting you to others. If I help you with your business, eventually, that might work its way as a good thing, for me. And
so, and here's,
awesome.
Okay, this is another layer of this that impresses me, Alex, because even more recently, so I've done a lot of networking myself, and one of the things that I hear from business leaders about a lot, especially folks who are transplants to Pittsburgh, is that this is a very tribal, kind of segregated place, Western Pennsylvania, if you will. And so it can be really hard to break in. And everybody kind of stays in their bubble. Like they might commute, well, now it's a minority of them, but they might commute to work downtown or somewhere. But if you're from Wexford, you don't really go outside of Wexford. The same thing in the South Hills. Like, why would you go to the North Hills? Like, nothing's there for me. The big joke in Pittsburgh is that we have more rivers than anybody in the world, or more bridges than anybody in the world, but nobody uses them because we don't want to interact with each other. But I'm very impressed that you were very intentional about going, and I've heard other Mike Arnold, good buddy of ours, from area director for CBMC here. He talks about this too because he came from Cleveland. In fact, in my first episode, we talked about the dynamics of Pittsburgh in this way. And he talked about how you have to have this long-term kind of perspective, and you've got to really build trust. And it's arduous and takes a long time. But more so here in Western PA than most places around the country, basically. So I'm curious about your perspective on that and what you encountered. Did you feel that as well? But clearly you worked really hard and made a lot of progress. Yeah.
No, I found out right away. I think it was in one of my first one-to-ones when I said something. I think someone asked me, "Oh, did you have any traffic getting here?" Which always cracked me up. I'm from Southern California. Show me the worst day in Pittsburgh and I'll take it, right? Like, you guys don't know there's only 2 lanes on 79. I'm used to 6 to 8 lanes moving in one direction at a standstill. No one's moving. Like, that's traffic. This is not traffic.
Yeah.
So that always cracked me up. And I think I said something like, "No, I took the 79. And she goes, so right away, as soon as I said that, she just said, "You're from California, aren't you?" And I was
no
like,
way.
Whoa!
She picked you out like
she
that.
Just, in a minute. And
Impressive.
So, but yeah, it's just interesting. I think I learned really quick that because of what we had done, the financial decisions that we made and how Stacy and I decided to run our household, I'm going to back up for a minute. And this was instrumental in me being able to network the way I did, was that from day one, when she went and got that job, her full-time position, and it ended up, being phenomenal for us, is we budgeted and lived off of her income and her income alone. Yeah. So when originally my earning paid off debt. When that was finished, my earning paid for vacations. It paid for my boys' college. It paid for her master's degree. It paid for me going back to school and getting my degree. And so that's how we did things. And then eventually it was just extra money to pay off the rental properties and pay off the mortgage. So we always budgeted and lived off of her income. With that in mind, I never had pressure to perform financially, ever. And so because of that, I would go and have coffee with, you, Mike, and I genuinely just wanted to get to know you. In the back of my mind, I'm not trying to scheme or figure out how, I could get to know your neighbor, if they might be selling or buying, or it wasn't about that. It was more like I genuinely just want to go meet people and get to know them. So I learned this phrase somewhere and I, stole it from my book, but I think it's just more of we've all heard the marathon versus the sprint thing, and networking is a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? Or what I like to say is networking is a crock pot. It's not a microwave, right?
Yes.
You just need to sit in there and hang out for a while and get to know each other. And it's always going to be better. So I was never trying to quick meet certain people or get to any kind of certain level. It was more of I loved getting the introductions, and that's where the book came from. I alluded to it earlier, Mike. If you introduce me to someone that's going to be a great person, I can't wait to meet them. Right?
Yeah.
I just know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's awesome. And I love the title. Great people know great people. And then subtitle, create a powerful business referral network of great people. So good. So there's a lot of great people in there. And there are a lot of great people out there. And I think that's part of maybe some people's hesitation is, I guess people don't think that maybe, or they hesitate because they're concerned or maybe they're introverts like you are and aren't good at putting themselves out there relationally like that. But yeah, when you do not network, you actually miss out in some ways. Yeah, does that make sense?
No, 100%. I just think of people that I've met that I had a different mentality. What the world might tell you about going and networking and meeting people. You might say, well, if I'm a financial planner, why would I meet with a Mary Kay lady, right? There's nothing in there for me. And but what you're missing out on is, who does she know, right? And you're looking at her solely from, what she does as a vocation, but you're discounting, what ministries is she involved in? Who's she married to? What's her family? Where does she live? What connections does she have? And it's not so that you can necessarily benefit, but I look at every person that I meet as another quiver, right? An arrow in my quiver, so that when you come to me, Mike, and you're like, man, I really need, a mechanic, do you know a Christian mechanic? Yes. Yeah. I know a Christian mechanic. I would drive an hour to take my car to this guy, right? Wow. And I would pass 50 mechanic shops to go to this guy's shop. And so that's what I love doing, is helping people with those kinds of things. And that only comes through going out and meeting as many people as you can and just being open to it, And not everything's going to be a connection. Sometimes you meet with someone and you're like, okay, great. And, you just move on. But they're all learning experiences, and it's wonderful to be a resource. I love being a resource. I'd like to think if someone calls me and says, hey, do you know someone who can do this or whatever? I either know someone who does, or I know someone who will probably know that person.
Man, that's awesome. Okay. All right. So I would love for you to, if you can, go through, you've got an acronym that you use for folks who are maybe sitting down and starting to network for the first time, and this is very helpful for them as they reach out to somebody, and then it's their first lunch or breakfast or whatever, coffee, after you've met someone. I would love for you to share that with us, that kind of rubric or outline, if you will, framework for guiding us through that initial interaction. I think that'd be really valuable for folks to hear.
Yeah. I learned this kind of early on in my networking journey, and definitely took it and used it, especially when I came to Pittsburgh. And so it's called the Hangs method. So I would take out a sheet of paper, and on one side of the sheet of paper, I would start at the top. I'd write HANG, S, and then between the G and the S, I would draw a line across the bottom of the page. And so the H stands for hobbies, right? So if we're sitting down having coffee, I might be like, hey, Mike, so like, what do you do when you're not working, right? So when you're not working, when you're not out discipling business owners and doing this, and you know, you get a day off and you don't have a podcast to edit, you've got a free day, what would you love to do at that time, right? And then you and I start talking about all kinds of stuff that you enjoy doing, and then you just get to know somebody. You get them outside of their vocation and you find out really who they are, what makes them tick a little bit, and it gives you some insight into somebody. You might, man, so many people have interesting hobbies. It's cool. Right? You just learn some cool things. Yeah. So then the A is accomplishments. And even I struggled with this because I think people like to talk about themselves. This is why this works. I would sit down with someone, I'd take a piece of paper, and I would tell them, hey, look, I like to take notes. Even if I'm not making eye contact with you, I promise you I'm listening because I'm writing things down, so just keep talking. And by the way, your phone goes away. It shouldn't be on the table. Yeah. It shouldn't be, you know, unless you've pre-said something like, I'm expecting a really important phone call, so if it rings, I have to answer, you know, say that. But otherwise, just put it away completely. Don't even let it be out. You want to focus on this person. So accomplishments is what the A stands for. So I might say something like, Mike, tell me something that you're proud of that you've done that you're proud of. Like you set out to do something and you did it, right? And you might talk about your book. I wrote a book. You might talk about, well, I've done this podcast. Like I'm out there, I'm doing it. If someone says something lame, like I'm proud of my family, I'm like, try again. Like, no, like doesn't count, right? You can be a moron and start a family. I was, right? So I need more significance. Yes. And it's awesome because then you find out someone will tell you, I ran a marathon, or there's one guy that we both know who's an ultra marathon runner. Like, that's crazy, right? Like you did what? Right. Some people who are like, oh, I was in the Navy and I flew fighter, I'm a fighter pilot, or I flew helicopters, and I was in this war or that war. And so it's amazing. So you just hear about people. Right? And sometimes it's just not that intense, but they're proud of something they did, a ministry they started, etc. Then N stands for networking. And that's when I say, hey, so I met you at the chamber, but where else do you network? And I do that selfishly. I want to know if there's something that I'm missing out on, right? They might say, oh, I also go to this group down in wherever, right? So we just kind of talk about that, different kinds of groups, etc. And I just kind of try to educate myself and learn what's out there. The G stands for goals. This is another one of those questions that will be interesting. So I might say, Mike, what are the goals that you're working on right now? And how can is there a goal that I could help you achieve? And you might say, yeah, actually, my goal is to meet 20 new people this year. And if there's someone you think I should meet, I would love. And I'd be like, oh, man, absolutely, right? And I'd bust out my phone and be like, I've got all 20. You need to up your goal, right? Like I would. And so if I met the individual at a Christian business partners meeting, or if I know they're a believer, then that G changes. And I'll ask, so Mike, tell me, how's God working in your business right now? And I love to ask questions and shut up, right? Like silence is so powerful because sometimes we want to bail people out, but I think it's important. If someone doesn't have goals in their business, I don't think any less of you. But I think if I ask that question and you don't have goals, I probably just helped you, right? Because now you realize you probably ought to have some goals. Yeah. And so, but I'll just ask the question and shut up and be ready to listen, right? And write things down, etc. And then the reason why that line is there before the S stands for services. So, hey, Mike, tell me, I need to understand what you do, right? I understand a little bit of what you do. I've heard your commercials. You talk about stuff, but man, help me. Just tell me the down and dirty. Let's talk about the meat here. What are we doing? But I don't care about what you do unless I care about the other stuff. Yeah. If I care about the person I just spent the last 45 minutes with and I like you, now I'm really listening to what you do. So that line is there to remind me that only matters, right? Because sometimes you sit with people and they just suck the life out of you. And at that point, I'm still going to ask the question, okay, so tell me what it is that you do, right? But I kind of don't care. Because no offense, I'm not going to refer you to someone. I'm at least not now. Maybe things will change in the future, but it doesn't seem like there's, substance there. We may not jive together well, and that's okay, right? That's okay.
Yep.
But go back to the beginning, and before we start talking about hobbies, I always start with family. So I tell people lowercase f up there, and the reason I don't lead with that is because then it sounds like it's the fangs. I call it the hangs method, but otherwise it's the fangs method.
Right.
And I don't want people to think we're digging our fangs into them. Yeah, no. But I gave the example earlier. I spoke to this woman that I met, who, by the way, was a wedding planner for an hour and a half, and all we talked about was family.
Oh, wow.
We had to set up a second one-to-one so that we could talk about business. And that's where you can really connect with people, and that's when you find out about their kids and their dogs and their cats. I ask about their spouses and where did you go to school, what was your major, what kind of work did you do, what led you to this point in your career. You can really, really go deep with people, but that's when I fall in love with people, is right there. And I fall in love with people above the G, and then at that point, like it's good, we're in. Like I'm good. I get your card, I keep it in a stack, and you're part of my referral network now. I'm going to introduce you and connect you to as many people as possible. But that, you could use that anywhere. If you're a single guy, go use it on a date. You want a woman to have a great date, you get her talking about herself the entire time. She's going to go home and say, I had a great time. Right. So when you have a one-to-one and you let that person talk the whole time, it's great. My youngest son is getting ready he gets to meet the vice president of human resources and for the company he works for. He met him at an after hours networking meeting. So my son did a good job of being bold and introducing himself, and he said, oh, you're the new guy, we should get coffee. And I go, you need to schedule that coffee meeting. You need to use the hangs method. He goes, I know, Dad, I know. But this will work. Even with a young kid and an executive at work, you could use this, because that executive, I'm sure, just gets pounded with the same kind of questions in meetings. And imagine going in and someone just expresses interest in who he is. Right? And finding about his family and his career, and all of a sudden they're going to look at you a little different, right? But that's awesome. That's been great.
I like you alluded to already. You've already said this, but I love how it focuses on them. I think one of the things that we get so nervous about in those situations is we in some way feel like we're in the spotlight when we meet with someone like that, and we get nervous because will they accept us? And when you ask them questions and they can sense that you're genuine and sincere about wanting to know these things about them, they will open up, and it will almost I don't want to say by accident or unintended, but you'll get these connecting points that open up, this relationship, to connect on different, not just what you're asking about, but it'll move to other areas, that you, like you said, you spent an hour with someone talking about family. But when you focus on them, it really opens them up, because like you said, people like talking about themselves, of course. And if you've got someone who's a good listener, if you can be a good listener in this and really ask those questions and draw someone out, oh my gosh, you can make a really deep connection with someone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think some of the things that we shy away from and hide from are the things that are going to be the most impactful, right? So, I met with someone who almost shamefully kind of had to talk about separation from her husband and how hard it was to raise kids as a single mom. And then for me to be able to say, hey, I don't know what it's like to be a single mom, but I certainly know what it's like to be a single dad, and I know what you're talking about. And to be able to then give a little bit of coaching in terms of what I know to be really harmful for the kids, some things that are just unavoidable, like divorce is just evil, right? And the kids are going to suffer. But to be able to talk to her and meet her in a place where she wasn't going in expecting any of this, right? It kind of came out. But God can use the manure in our lives to help us grow and to help others grow, right? But I found myself, you asked the book and how it started, like I found myself taking some of these things that I'd learned and trying to coach people as I was leading networking meetings and trying to help other, entrepreneurs do stuff. And as I would have them hear them give their commercial, at some point I might do like a session on, hey, let me teach you how to do this in a more effective way. And then I realized I have a lot of this. I bet you I've got enough material here for a book, and decided to do it. And I did it, so
absolutely, man.
That was cool.
Well, I'm so glad you did, Alex. I think it is incredible. Again, for folks as you're listening, just a reminder, it's great people know great people. Create a powerful business referral network of great people. And man, I highly, highly encourage you to check it out. Let me see here. One of the things that I said, for example, it's a practical, fire-tested advice that will empower you to level up your skills. And you just heard how it was through his own life. Someone else said this is the networking Bible you've been waiting for. What a great people know great people is a must read for today's college students, entrepreneurs, and professionals. And then this book is a must when looking to network in the professional world today. Yeah, just glowing, recommendations, endorsements of it, Alex, and I think has potential to make such an impact here in Pittsburgh. And so thank you for doing that. Thank you for walking through the fire and like wrestling that bear for this book to be birthed out, because I know the process is not easy. It can be very hard, man. But thank you for bearing that burden for those who now get to glean from that struggle. So, all right. So, Alex, how can folks find you? How can they, maybe it's follow you online? How do they connect with you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Man, you could find me online. You could Google Alex Giannetti. You could go to alexgiannetti.com. Book-greatpeople.com is the book website if you're interested in that. Book-greatpeople on Instagram. I also have Christian Business Partners, so christian.business.partners on Instagram. LinkedIn as well. You can find Christian Business Partners. We're church for business. We're not exclusive. Anyone can walk in the door. So we're open to anyone. We're not going to say, oh, we already have 8 mortgage lenders, you're not allowed to join, or we already have someone who does what you do. Everyone's welcome. And we've got chapters we've got 3 chapters in Pittsburgh, 4 chapters. One of them's online. It's just simply our Western Pennsylvania chapter, but we have Tuesdays in Gibsonia, Wednesdays in Wexford, and Thursdays in Sewickley.
Yeah.
And so we'd love to have you come and just pop in and say hello.
And if folks are listening from around the country, you have traveled to other areas to get it started, like Houston, for example. I know you've gone there. I think, Philadelphia.
There's 2 in Houston, 1 in Arizona. There's 5 or 6 in California. We do have 1 nationwide chapter that meets Tuesday mornings at 8 a.m. Pacific time, so 11 a.m. for us.
Yep.
So if you have a business that you can do multiple states, I would highly encourage just popping in and visiting that CBP USA chapter. Yep.
So if you're in Pittsburgh, come visit us and check out one of the groups here. Or if you're from around the country and you're thinking, well, it doesn't sound like there's anything here, reach out to Alex, and he'll fly out and buy you coffee. He's smiling because I'm making a big problem. No, I'm sure you would love to connect with them and talk to them about what it takes to get a new chapter started somewhere else in the country, right?
Absolutely. And if you live somewhere cool, I might fly out.
There you go. Somewhere like Hawaii or
there you go.
The Bahamas or something.
Absolutely.
Right. That's awesome. All right, Alex, man, thank you. This has been so good. I always love chatting with you. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. Really appreciate you being with us.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Mike.
Let's get to work.